Hey guys, welcome back. It is finally week number 4 in the month of goodness, also known as August. And I will say for the last time that if you are seeing this video first, please go back and start with week number 1 in definitions, and then go to week number 2, am I a good person? And then week number 3, is God a good God? And if so, why is there so much suffering? And then come back and join us here in week number 4, because it builds on itself. All the videos build on each other, and this final video will make much more sense if you watch all of them in order. So this week we're talking about how we can participate in God's goodness, and I don't have as many notes up here on the board as what I have in the previous weeks, because this final question is simple and it's difficult at the same time. So one of the things, my dog is walking around here, one of the things that I find curious, I've been doing a lot of coaching lately, especially for a certain company, and there's about 40 or so employees that I have been coaching and working on team building and culture. And when I sit down with the individual people, without fail, there has not been one exception to this yet. Without fail, I will say, how is it going? And they will tell me about a certain problem that they're having with the person or with the system in the company. And every single time they will point at another department or another person as the reason for the current chaos or the confusion or the frustration or the things are not going well. Never, not one time has a person sat with me and said, this is how I'm contributing to the problem. And when I bring it up, I say, okay, now I've heard the problem. I've heard, enough of the story to understand what's going on. Tell me your part. Tell me how you are contributing to this problem. And they will begin by saying, well, and then they'll talk for like 3 seconds, and then immediately shifts back to the other department and the other person, what they're doing to cause this calamity. And it takes me a while to get the person around. I have to give several examples. I have to sit with them, 5, 10, 20 minutes to get them to come around to the fact that we are all participating. And it goes back to this, what we talked about in week number 2, am I a good person? And the answer is really no, because we can't decide on what is good. First of all, there's no working definition, as we talked about, that we can all agree on. And our goodness, our value and our worth comes from God. It doesn't come from us, and He has a completely different definition of good, like we talked about last week. And so this causes a problem that when we ask for goodness, right? So when we look and say, is there any goodness left in the world? The way that we can participate is to be that goodness, or to be good. Now that's really a silly thing to say, because how frustrating is it to look in the dictionary and for example, we look up the word goodness and it says, oh, it's the act of being good. Okay, so what's good, right? And we have to go on this wild goose chase and backtrack and find out what the definition is. So the definition that we have brought forward, how can we participate in God's goodness? And part of it is accepting our responsibility. Part of it is being the person that we want other people to be. And that's really hard, because we always say, okay, well, other people are doing this. I'm not killing anyone. I'm not cheating on anyone. I'm not, I'm not stealing. And so we think that because we're not breaking any of the 10 commandments, which we all are, but we think that because we are making decisions that are not hurting people, that we're good. And therefore we are delivering goodness, and that's not how it works. So to participate in God's goodness, there's a couple of things that we can do. We have to believe God when He says that everyone is valuable. Every person on the planet is valuable. The homeless person on the street that we think, oh, well, they just want to be there, so I'm not going to help them. The person in the hospital, the people who we think are not being productive, who we value that their behavior, everyone is valuable. Believe God when He says that every human life is valuable. And I'm not sure why we don't want to believe that, but we have this hesitancy to say, no, that person is more valuable than that person, and they're not valuable. So part of the goodness is to believe that everyone is valuable, everyone is redeemable, everyone is invited to participate in this through Jesus. Men and women are created equal. So when we believe God that we are all together, we believe the commercial when they say it, but for some reason when we propose that God says that, we kind of balk at that. I'm not sure why. We can also develop our character, ask for forgiveness, freely forgive others, adopt healthy boundaries, which is kind of an odd thing to say, but God never asks us to be a doormat. He never asks us to put up with things because that we're just supposed to be, humble, and we're just supposed to accept. That's not what it says at all. Lean into gratitude. Go back to January, the month of January, when we took 4 weeks to talk about gratitude, what it really is and what it really means, and what is it that we're really grateful for. Love God, love your neighbor, love your enemy, right? We saw this all the way through, actually this whole year, but we talked about that a lot last week. Be the person that you want others to be. So in the people that I'm coaching, when they're pointing at the other department, the other person, putting the blame on other people, if we can adopt the responsibility and say, I am not going to gossip. I am not going to tear people down. I am not going to use degrading or shaming words. I am not going to treat people in a way that is disrespectful or rude or shameful. I am not going to cheat. I am not going to do things in the dark. I'm not going to things that I know that I'm not going to get caught, right? We also talked about that definition, that a thief is not someone who necessarily steals, but someone who would steal if they could do it without getting caught. So when we take that responsibility, be the person that you want others to be. Stop pointing our fingers at everybody else. Stop pointing our fingers at the Democrats and the Republicans and the conservatives and the liberals. If we be a loving person, we treat people with respect and value and worth, and we love our enemies and love people who are against us. That's how we participate in this backwards, upside down, opposite kingdom that God has created for us. Choose the God of the Bible, accept his son Jesus, participate with the Holy Spirit, because we can look out at the world and say, why is all those evil and why is all this suffering? Or we can say, okay, God, I don't get it, but I'm going to participate in your goodness by believing you, and I'm going to accept this gift. When I do that, I'm going to accept this gift of love and joy and peace and patience and kindness and goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. And like we have been talking about all year, we've taken a month to talk about each one of these character traits that are a gift. They are internal workings. I don't have the capacity to love the way that I'm supposed to. I don't have the capacity to be patient or kind or joy the way that would be beneficial for you. I just don't, right? Because I'm a selfish person and I want my own will and my own desire. But because I follow Jesus, because I believe in God, because I am working with the Holy Spirit, he puts those gifts inside of me, so I'm not left alone. I'm not left to deal with the evil in the world all by myself. I can still have all of this. Even though I turn on the nightly news and it's the crime report, I can still have love and joy and peace and patience and kindness and goodness and faithfulness and gentleness and self-control. I can still have all of that. I can still participate in God's goodness. We just have to choose it. So when we choose to look at the world like the sky's going to fall, or we choose to look at the world and say, I'm going to embrace these trials because perseverance develops character and then hope. I'm going to choose to participate in there's good and evil in the world. I'm going to choose to participate in God's upside down goodness. And I'm going to follow, what he says, because what he says is not about making us morons or making us whatever it is that people say about Christians, about they're horrible people, right? There may be horrible people, but that's not coming from God. That's coming from them. So we are out of time. Let me know what you think in the comments, and we will see you next month in the month of September when we talk about faithfulness. All right? Be good, you guys. See you next month. Bye.